Many of us have been wondering, how can we hold Israel accountable? We know that Israel needs to be held accountable, but many of us have just been, we feel so powerless. We feel like we've protested, we've written articles, essays, we've screamed at the top of our lungs that we're against what is happening. We're against genocide. We're against what Israel is doing. Not to mention, Israel is now bombing Syria again. I have to bring on a guest for that segment. So they're trying to occupy everything and control everything. But something is happening. When Dan Kovalik was on the show, he told us that he was on his way to Bogota, Colombia, to be a part of the Hague group. And I think you guys need to see what this group is doing and why everyone needs to talk about this. Let's go ahead and bring this in here. Shout out to Al Jazeera for this. Hague Group announces steps to hold Israel accountable in Bogota summit. This is a big one. A group of 12 countries from across the world has committed to barring arms transfers to Israel, among other steps. So do you see how these countries got together and they decided, forget going through forget the UN, because the UN's not helping with nothing, because the US representative is always the one to raise the hand to say no to a permanent ceasefire, no to this, right? So they tried the proper channels. This is important to people to understand. They already tried that. That wasn't working out. These particular countries decided to get together and find ways that they could hold Israel accountable on their own. And this effort was led by South Africa and Colombia. One of the people who was there is Abby Martin. Now, Abby Martin is a journalist. She primarily covers a lot of foreign policy. She's traveled across the world. And she is at the Hague group right now. We'll get into that in just a second. But I want to show you guys, you see the faces here? So there's the president of Colombia, right, in the middle. Let's get into this. The 2-day meeting concluded on Wednesday with 24 countries agreeing to 6 measures to restrain Israel's assault on the occupied Palestinian territories. They include Bolivia, Colombia, Cuba, Indonesia, Iraq, Iraq, Libya, Malaysia, Namibia, Nicaragua, Oman, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines in South Africa. We believe in protagonism, not supplication. That is coming from Varsha, who's the executive secretary at the Hague group. Let's go into this part here. This group was founded in January, and they seek to bring together countries from the global south and loosely define region of developing economies to pressure Israel to end its war on Gaza and the occupation of the Palestinian territories. Among the steps announced by the group are the denial of arms to Israel, a ban on ships transporting such arms, and a review of public contracts for possible links to companies that benefit from the Israeli occupation. This is exactly what we were asking the US government to do. Ban the weapons, stop sending weapons to Israel, right? Stop, transporting arms on these ships, is just stop sending them the weapons. Of course, our government isn't going to listen because they agree and approve of what Israel is doing. So these countries decided to take matters into their own hands and say, you know what? We have no control over what the United States is doing, but we do have some control over what we choose to do. And this is where the multipolar world comes in. This is exactly what I was talking about with Brian Berlatek. This idea of the United States kind of being on its own plane here, and other countries across the world are coming together to try to do the right thing. The United States is driving itself deeper and deeper into isolationism. Sorry. Deep into isolation. That's what the United States government is doing. And it's going to get to the point where eventually, and I predict this, it's going to get to the point where eventually other countries, I think some of these Western allies, even some of these NATO countries, eventually are going to start to turn on the US in economic ways. But that's another story. This is what is happening, folks. The multipolar world that the United States is not a part of, not because they can't be, but because they don't want to be. And there are more of them than the US. People have to understand the West is small. People have to understand how many people are in China, how many people are in India, how many people are in South America, how many people are in African countries. The West is small. And this kind of reminds me of the whole 99% thing. You see, they know this and they realize that we do not have to go along with what the United States government is doing at all. The 6 measures also included support for universal jurisdiction mandates, which would allow states and international bodies to prosecute serious international crimes, regardless of where they took place. Now, this is big because the US government continues to say that Israel, well, you cannot put sanctions on Israel. The Hague cannot tell Israel what to do. What would you have to do? You would need to change. You need to change that rule. So this is really important. The delegates here have been discussing these measures for 2 days and are calling it the most ambitious multilateral plan since the beginning of Israel's war in Gaza 21 months ago. And I want to show you some of the people who are there that were part of the Hague group. First and foremost, this announcement of the group. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on this. But the fact that Colombia came together, you now have South America and Africa coming together, right? So pay attention to this here.
A 2-day emergency summit in Bogota to try to stop Israel's genocide in Gaza.
No solo para deliberar.
Convened by the Hague Group, a bloc of countries from the global south, led by Colombia and South Africa, that promises to move from condemnation to concrete actions.
Nos encontramos aquí no solo para deliberar.
We are here not only to speak, but to act, with legal, ethical, and political clarity in the face of one of the most serious moral challenges of our time, the suffering of the Palestinian people.
The conference brought together countries from around the world, including China, Spain, Mexico, and Qatar, to discuss enforcing the International Criminal Court arrest warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, halting arms transfers to Israel and blocking ships tied to Israel's military industry. Among the key guests is UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese, who urged the states to go further by cutting all economic ties with Israel. She also condemned the United States, which recently sanctioned her.
I do believe that. Pause here before we get to Francesca. This is what I was talking about. When Shama came on the show, Shama was saying that, we need to work with the working class that's in Israel or still have solidarity with the working class. And my whole big thing is when I say yes to BDS, I mean yes to all of it. I really do think that Israel is going to have to get to the point where it crumbles economically. And so these countries agreeing upon do not do business with Israel. If you can't stop them, if you can't, obviously you can't stop the US from sending weapons to Israel. They can't, these countries can't stop the US from doing that. But they can make sure they don't do it. And then also, you would have to hit Israel economically. You would have to hit them where it really hurts. I keep telling you guys over and over again that one thing that people understand is money. Because when the economy starts to fall and money gets tight, that's really when you start to get people's attention. And that's what I was saying. You got to hit them in the pocket. It's not just the government. It's not just Benjamin Netanyahu. The entire state of Israel is going to have to suffer economically. Only then and only then do I really think there could be some possible change here. But as long as countries keep doing trade with Israel, keep doing business with them, I mean, what are they? Why would they feel differently? And now you see Benjamin Netanyahu has now made the announcement, yes, we are going to continue to further occupy Syria. They're bombing Syria now. Again, this is a rogue state that has gone unchecked for too damn long, to be honest. And that's how they got here. Let's continue with Francesca here.
The US is totally complicit with whatever Israel is doing, but to the point that with the new administration, even the forced displacement of the Palestinians, which has occurred for decades under the watch of everyone, including the United States, has become part of the US foreign policy.
The continuing crime. The Palestinian ambassador to the UN welcomed the Hague group's push for concrete steps.
We welcome every action-oriented step from all the ones that you mentioned and others in which countries are contemplating to take. This journey has to start. Usually, the beginning time is the difficult time because there will be some hesitation, fear from pressure. But once people start taking these bold steps, and it is their, sovereign right to make these decisions. It is their obligation to honor and respect international law in their own national capacity. Once a group start taking these steps, they will open the door for others.
This conference may be laying out one of the boldest frameworks yet to pressure Israel over Gaza. It might not stop the war, but it could be an important first step to change how the world responds.
This is a good point, how the world responds. And so if I remember correctly, that other countries, I think they have until September to decide to go along with it. Now, Francesca Albanese did give remarks at the Hague Group event. I do want to show you what Francesca said here.
Absolutely important to be here in a moment that might prove historical indeed. There is hope that these 2 days will move all present to work together to concrete measures to end the genocide in Gaza and hopefully end the erasure of Palestinians in the little that remains of Palestine. Because this is the testing ground for a system where freedom, rights, and justice are made real for all. This hope that people like me hold tight is a discipline we all should have. I have to say that it's not easy to speak after you, Dr. Ahmed, all the more because right now, as a European, I feel a retching sorrow inside me. Because as you were speaking and recounting what, unfortunately, I've had to see happen day by day over 648 days, the European Union decided not to suspend the ties with Israel. The occupied Palestinian territory today is a hellscape. In Gaza, Israel has dismantled even the last UN function, humanitarian aid, in order to deliberate, starve, displace time and time again, or kill a population they have marked for elimination. In the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, ethnic cleansing advances through unlawful siege, mass displacement, extrajudicial killing, arbitrary detention, and widespread torture. Across all areas under Israeli rule, Palestinians live under the terror of annihilation, broadcast in real time to a watching world. There are very few Israeli people who stand against genocide, forever occupation, and apartheid, while the majority of the Israeli society openly cheers and calls for more, remind us that Israeli liberation too is inseparable from Palestinian freedom. The atrocities of the past 21 months are not a sudden aberration. They are the culmination of decades of policies to displace and replace the Palestinian people. And against this backdrop, it's inconceivable that political forums from Brussels to New York are still debating recognition of the state of Palestine, and not because it's unimportant, but because for 35 years, the states have stalled, refused recognition, pretending to invest in the Palestinian Authority while abandoning the Palestinian people to Israel's relentless, rapacious territorial ambitions and unspeakable crimes.
And it doesn't stop there, because one thing that I do want to add about this, Guys, I keep telling you, like this whole expansion, don't forget Benjamin Netanyahu said, and then we will go on to liberate Africa too. They want all of it. They want to go into the African countries and take over there too. This doesn't end with Gaza or the West Bank or Syria or Lebanon. They want all of it. People really got to wake up.
Meanwhile, political discourse has reduced Palestine to a humanitarian crisis to manage in perpetuity, rather than a political issue demanding principled and firm resolution, and permanent occupation, apartheid, and today genocide. And it's not the law that has failed or faltered, it is political will that has abdicated. And today we are also witnessing a rupture. Palestine's immense suffering has cracked open the possibility of transformation, even if this is not fully reflected in political agendas yet. A revolutionary shift is underway, one that, if sustained, will be remembered as a moment when history changed course. And this is why I came to this meeting with a sense of being at a historical turning point, both discursively and politically. First, the narrative is shifting. In Brussels, they might have not realized, but it is. Away from Israel's endlessly right to self-defense and toward the long-denied Palestinian right to self-determination, systematically invisibilized, suppressed, and delegitimized for decades. The weaponization of anti-Semitism applied to Palestinian words and narratives, and the dehumanizing use of the terrorism framework for any Palestinian action, from armed resistance to the work of NGOs pursuing justice in international arena, has led to a global political paralysis that has been intentional, and this must be redressed. The time is now. Second, and consequentially, we are seeing the rise of a new multilateralism, principled, courageous, increasingly led by the global majority. And I'm glad many of these countries are here. It pains me that I have to see these include robustly European countries, because as a European, I fear the region and its institutions have come to symbolize, I fear what the region and its institutions have come to symbolize to many. A sodality of states preaching international law, yet guided more by colonial mindset than principle, acting as vassals to the US empire, even if as it drags us from war to war, misery to misery, and when it comes to Palestine, from silence to complicity, from apartheid to genocide. But the presence of European countries at this meeting shows that a different path is possible. To them, I say, the Hague Group has the potential to signal not just a coalition, but a new moral center in world politics. Please engage more, stand with them more robustly. Millions are watching, hoping for leadership that can birth a new global order rooted in justice, humanity, and collective liberation. It's not just about Palestine. This is about all of us. Principal states must rise moment. It does not need to have a political allegiance, color, political party, flags, or ideologies. It needs to be upheld by basic human values, those which Israel has been mercilessly crushing for 21 months now and counting. Meanwhile, I applaud the calling of this emergency conference in Bogota to address the unrelenting situation in Gaza. So it is.
We'll pause it there because I think it breaks up a little bit here. That's like kind of towards the end there anyway. But you guys get the point. Like Francesca is warning people again, like this is not just about Gaza, and it really isn't. It can happen to any other country. And it's not just Francesca who's there. Abby Martin is also there. This is what I was telling you guys. Like we need to talk about this more, this Hague group. So Abby Martin shared this on Twitter with the absolute legend Rima Haas at the Hague Group Summit in Bogota. I don't know if everyone remembers, but Rima, she was on the Freedom Flotilla with, oh shoot, I forgot the girl's name. Gretchen? Yeah, she was on the Freedom Flotilla with Gretchen, and she was one of the activists that Israel decided to keep captive longer than others. Right. But that's Rima right there. And Abby also shared this as well. Thrilled to be in Bogota for the historic Hague Group Summit, where 32 states are uniting to uphold international law and confront Israel's crimes. Encouraged to see so many countries resisting the West's new norm of lawlessness and impunity for genocide. Greta Thunberg. Yeah, I forgot her name. I don't know why, but Greta, yeah. So Abby is there, and this, like I said, you guys, this is a big deal because these are the countries that are saying we don't care what the U.S. is saying. Something has to break here. Now, I want to show you who else is there, and we'll get to this interview that Abby had in just a second as well. Jeremy Corbyn from the UK is also there. So there are quite a bit of notable people that are present for this Hague group. Listen to what Jeremy Corbyn said outside.
Esta manifestación aquí en Bogotá es muy importante. La declaración del Grupo de Hague es muy importante también. Es una declaración del pueblo del mundo en solidaridad el pueblo palestino. Nunca más armas para Israel, nunca más petróleo para Israel, nunca más las empresas voy a Israel. Es importante solidaridad en todo el mundo. Un sábado próximo en Londres, una manifestación para Palestina. Es el 27 manifestación nacional durante un año. Posiblemente 200, 300 mil.
I wanted you guys to see this. He said possibly 200 to 300,000 people at this event.
Personas en la manifestación y el pueblo británico en solidaridad del pueblo palestino para paz, para derechos humanos. Ahora, vista en el tele, el genocide. Viste en el tele, la murió de los chicos. Vista en el tele, la polución del agua y el murió del todo el pueblo en muchas casas y hospitales también. Es horror. Por favor, solidaridad. Por favor, activista. Por favor, Palestine. Viva Palestine!
Okay, so that was Jeremy Corbyn. And now to go along with this, Abby Martin also had an interview with Al Jazeera. This was very recent as well. A lot of people, if you're newer to my channel, you may not realize this, but Abby Martin had a documentary, and it was Abby Martin's documentary that really made me like, whoa, what the hell is going on with Israel? And that was years ago. But that's why I tell people, even before October 7th, those of us at RBN, we were talking about Israel occupying Gaza. We were talking about that back then, before October 7th. But it was Abby Martin's documentary that kind of woke me up. I had no idea. I was totally in the dark. I didn't realize what the state of Israel really was. I really did not know. But what she says here in this particular interview, she makes the connection between the weapons industry and why this is all profit for them. And the reason why Francesca Albanese was sanctioned by Marco Rubio is because Francesca Albanese listed the companies, and I think this just maybe some of them, listed the companies that were directly profiting from the genocide in Gaza. And they're not all weapon contractors. That's the thing. Some of those Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, is profiting from it. We know Palantir, right? We know that. We talked about that one. But some of these other companies that she mentioned, a lot of people just really did not know. Listen to what Abby Martin says here about the connection with those industries.
The United States government is the leading force of instability, violence, and environmental destruction.
Abby Martin is an investigative journalist and the creator of The Empire Files, an independent media outlet that dissects the inner workings of U.S. empire. Her reporting engages with the hard truth. War is a business, and business is booming.
The military-industrial complex plays the center role. in shaping American foreign policy. It is the shaper of U.S. foreign policy.
And this business model works. In 2023, U.S. defense companies made almost $1 trillion in sales, with a record $765 billion of that coming directly from government contracts. Here's one way that money ends up in their hands. When the U.S. votes to send military aid abroad, like to Israel or Ukraine, most of that money goes to American arms makers. Whether it gets used to fund new weapons or restocking those sent from U.S. reserves, it basically serves as a form of corporate welfare for defense contractors.
It fuels the conflicts. I mean, you look at Gaza and Ukraine, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, all of their stocks exploded. Their profits were massive in 2023 and 2024. Why?
That's important for people to know, right? So here's the thing. I think another thing people need to realize, let's say we're not at war. This is when you may start to see those companies start to have massive layoffs. And by the way, Raytheon, I remember this going back to, was that after September 11? It might have been after September 11th. I forget. I remember Raytheon in particular, they have this thing where it's like, okay, like if we have conflict, then they're hiring people. But if things are kind of stable for a while, they have these massive round of layoffs. And they're Raytheon's all over the country. They're not like in one particular state, but they do that. So when you see those companies like start laying people off, that means that the US is not having enough wars, basically. Let's continue.
Because these horrific, catastrophic wars, their shareholders had huge returns on those wars.
It's true. In the year following Russia's initial invasion of Ukraine, the stock price for General Dynamics rose nearly 34%.
34%. So does everybody see this? This is what we were talking about. Once they get into the wars, see how this rises and increases up there. So yeah, like they make a lot of money. But if there's no wars, I remember, I think it was George Bush Sr. who said this. I think it was him, that war is good for the economy. It's good for them. This is what they're really talking about.
1 year after the Hamas-led attacks on Israel, Lockheed Martin saw an increase of over 54%.
And Lockheed Martin is a big one, the biggest one. And that's one of the ones that people talk about, like who to boycott or whatever, who to take that. Lockheed Martin is like the biggest one.
And of course, the other top contractors benefited in their own ways too. These companies aren't just making money, they're becoming too powerful to stop. President Eisenhower famously predicted this problem back in the 1960s. In fact, he coined the term military-industrial complex during his final speech as president.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
He was right. Today, just 5 U.S. companies dominate the entire global defense industry: Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics.
Those are the ones, guys. Hold on, let me go back. I just want you to be able to see all of them.
On Boeing, Northrop Grumman, and General Dynamics.
And General Dynamics, those are the top 5. Those are the top 5. And I'll tell you something else. With Boeing in particular, in South Carolina, right? Like, you guys know Nikki Haley was working with, like, had some type of contract with Boeing after her, actually before, it wasn't after she was governor. I forget, it was after she was governor, after her failed presidential run. She was working with like Boeing as well. A lot of people don't know this unless you live in the area. Boeing has such a hold on jobs in South Carolina that, like, in certain parts of South Carolina, I think there's also one near Charleston area, they're pretty much the big game in town. So it's like they're the ones that supply most of the jobs. And that's another thing. But it's one of those things, again, like I feel like a lot of people just don't know that unless you live in that area.
Well, the United States is the global arms supplier. The US supplies almost 50% of all the weapons on the planet. There is no other country that parallels the military power and entrenchment of this kind of military-industrial complex other than the US empire.
And that kind of dominance doesn't just mean influence. It means they profit from nearly every major conflict on Earth.
Every single one. So in order for those companies to profit, there has to be war. There has to be conflict. Does everybody get it now? So see, this is what I've been trying to tell people. When people say, well, the president of the United States is running the show. No, like again, if Eric, I don't know if you can find that pyramid. I know this is last minute. I'm so sorry. But the pyramid I used to show on the show, it shows you where the president of the United States actually sits. They're not at the top. Like you literally have like the billionaire class, you have big banks, big business, corporations, all of this tied into defense contractors. Don't forget about the shareholders. You guys know I've mentioned on this show multiple times. BlackRock is a big one, right? BlackRock, State Street Corp, Vanguard Group, like they are shareholders and they have shares in different industries. They don't just have shares within the military industrial complex, they also have shares in media. If you look up the shareholders for CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, then you'll understand why they have the message and the narrative that they have. So when you have companies that are that big and they have their hands in different industries, that is why it is just saying, well, let's just get a president in there that is going to end all of this. In order for this to fully happen, you have to take down the big dogs. Like you have to take down BlackRock, Vanguard Group, State Street Corporation, who have their hands in so many different industries. Because that's a big, then you got to tackle the media. So it's not just getting a president in that says, no, we're not going to have these wars. As long as these companies are around and they are pushing this to make these profits, this is going to be a problem. Let's continue.
And that's no accident, it's by design. Take NATO, for example. Back in the 1990s, US defense contractors lobbied hard to expand NATO, not just for security reasons, but also to open up new markets for their business. Whenever a new member state joined NATO, they were required to modernize their militaries, usually.
Yeah, so this talks about the connection between NATO and how they have to modernize their militaries. I have to skip through this part, but usually by buying American weapons. So this is why, like when we said ban NATO, abolish NATO, this is why. And I know some people who are older were looking at us like we were crazy when we were out there at the protest and we said abolish NATO. NATO is not good. You've been brainwashed into believing that NATO is a good thing. NATO is just as much a part of this. So why do you need a North Atlantic Treaty Organization? Why do you need that if you don't have wars? Well, why do you need that? Why do you need to have this alliance if you're not having any wars? And who's causing most of the conflicts? The West. So think about that, folks. You know, it took me years to finally realize some of these conflicts, the way that it was described on corporate media and the way that they started was not the way these things started at all. Libya is a good example. Iraq is a good example. I had to educate myself on Iraq. Afghanistan is a good example. It's the West.
Collectively allowed to happen in Gaza. And for people to say, oh, it's just far away, we have nothing to do with it, couldn't be further from the truth. It's a US-Israeli genocide. And it's pushed and propped up by US defense contractors.
Now, I want you to take what Abby said here and put it together with what Brian Berlatek said, that the US, this foreign policy was already written. This was already decided years ago, regardless of who the president would be. So when people come to you and they say, oh, well, things would have been different if so-and-so would have gotten in there. No, it would not have. because they're not the ones. People have to see who's really making these decisions. The policy was already written. General Wesley Clark really tried to explain to everybody a while back, and he said, listen, guys, I just want to tell you that they told me 7 countries, 5 years. Or was it 5 years, 7 countries? Yeah. They said, we're going to war with Iraq? Yeah. And he said, why? He's like, I don't know. Just because. Those decisions were already made. And that's a warning to everyone. I think Eric is trying to find that chart. Yeah. So I'll pull up this chart to show you, because what that Hague group is doing, that's a big deal. You can't, we done with the days of trying to do things through the proper channels. What you see the Hague group doing, those are real heroes. All those countries, all the people, Abby Martin and all of them, Jeremy Corbyn, all those people who went there, those are the real heroes. Not Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris, not these politicians. What do you see them fight for? This is what I'm saying. Like, what do you see them fight for? Right now, they can't even get out in the streets and march with you guys. The majority of the politicians who are complaining about Donald Trump's policies are not in the streets marching with the people. You can count them on one hand. And this is the reason why. This is what I was talking about. We have been conditioned to believe that the president is at the top. They're not. They're puppets. So if you look at feudalism then and now, you have medieval feudalism on the left. You have the monarchs at the top, landed gentry, clergy, royal ministers, merchants, vassals, and everybody else at the bottom. And that included the peasants, laborers, and conscripts. But this is where we are today. Corporate feudalism, where you have the bankers at the top, the central bankers, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of Japan, the big banks, ECB. After the central bankers, you have the big bankers. That's your JP Morgans, your Goldman Sachs, your Lloyds. Anybody notice where we going with this? Have you noticed we haven't even made it to the president of the United States yet? Let's continue. Then it goes on. Next, you have your corporate elite. That is your Fortune 500 peeps and your multinationals. Then you get to elected officials. So do you see where the president actually sits on the triangle, the pyramid here? Look, presidents, MPs, and representatives. Everybody else above them is running the freaking show. That's how you get here. The corporate elite, the big bankers, and the central bankers. Those are the people that are really running the show. And that is why I continue to say, if you can't take the billionaire class is a problem. Some people get nervous when I say, no, we should not have billionaires. You should not have billionaires. Do you know what that means to be a billionaire? Do you know how much money that means they have? Do you know how many people that they had to use and abuse to get there? Underneath the president of the United States are the top bureaucrats, commissioners, secretaries, judges. Okay, the people involved in criminal justice, etc. There's Condoleezza Rice there. I think that's supposed to be her. Then you have the top professionals, doctors, entertainers, and clergy. I want to be very clear about something, folks. This is why I keep telling people when we talk about the class system, people aren't necessarily where you think that they would be. At the bottom is everybody else. Workers, students, and soldiers. See, even soldiers would be at the bottom because they don't make as much. Also, looking at this, when we talk about top professionals, that doesn't even include many of us who went to grad school who have a master's degree like me. I'm not even in that category because as an academic advisor, I didn't make much either. I hate to tell everybody this. I don't want to burst your bubble, but if you're looking to go into education, I hope you ain't looking to make much. Just keeping it real. So the point that Abby is making is 100% correct. The president is not at the top. So once you understand that the central bankers, the big bankers, and the corporate elite are above the president of the United States, then you understand why things operate the way that they do. And the billionaire class, the central bankers, the big bankers, the corporate elite want these wars just as much as those weapon contractors. That's the problem. So politicians are not your heroes. Celebrities are not real heroes unless they try to, they save somebody's life or something. But other than that, no. The people that you see right now at the Hague group, it's Francesca, it's Dan Kovalik, it's Jeremy Corbyn, it's Abby Martin. It's all those countries that got together to say, we are going to find a way to hold Israel accountable on our own. Forget what the West is doing. Those are the real heroes. It's Chris Smalls, who just got on the next Freedom Flotilla to sail to Gaza. It's the previous Freedom Flotilla with Greta and Rima. Those are the real heroes. And people like Piers Morgan, who are sitting there wagging their finger and saying they just want views, they just want clicks. How about you go get on a boat, Piers? How about you leave your cushy studio, go get on a boat, sail across the ocean, day and night. You go do it. Go do something for once. So we cannot allow ourselves to be tricked and fooled into believing that a politician is a hero. They're not heroes. They're not saviors. They are servants to the corporate elite, the big bankers, and the central bankers. So kudos to Abby and the team. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.